Chapter 17. Is he your partner? I beg your pardon, Cameron said. How would you like us to list Mr. Burton? He's a classmate. You're not lovers, then? No. Are we supposed to bring only significant others? No, I was just wondering. We'll put him down as friend. How's that? Accurate. Cameron was thrilled to be allowed to bring a guest to the Boston Globe event. Apparently others were bringing family members or lovers. There's another reason I ask, the woman said. The executive editor of the Globe and a few of his associates would like a moment with you in his office after the banquet. Are you able to accommodate that request? Well, sure, that'd be great. Your friend would not be included in that unless he was your significant other. Really? Why? I couldn't say. I mean, you don't think they're talking about something I would want to inform my loved ones about? I have no idea. Well, okay. He would be joining you then? No, that will be no problem. The Globe is just up the street from the banquet site, and I don't expect your meeting will be long. Irene could tell Rayford felt trapped. With the weather no longer conducive to golf, he no longer had an alternative to church on Sunday mornings. He still had some Sunday flights, but there were only so many. And when he was in town, there was really nothing else to do. You know what, Rafe? Irene said. I'll bet you'd enjoy attending New Hope, and it wouldn't be such an ordeal to talk yourself into going. No, you don't. You haven't even been there. How do you know? I can tell from what Jackie says. It's like I already know the pastor, Reverend Billings, even though I've never met him. And there's an assistant pastor, Bruce Barnes, whom everybody loves. All kinds of good things happening there. Don't start, Irene. She hadn't meant to press. She really hadn't. Irene knew her motives were pure. If only she could find the right approach to the man she loved and worried about. I'm just saying, she said, it might be worth a try. I sure would like to go and take the kids, especially when you're not in town. He shook his head. I'd never get you back. What do you mean? It sounds like a cult to me. You know the leaders' names without even having been there? Let's just stay where we are, and I'll go when I can. Let him go, Nikolai, Leon Fortunato said, sitting across from Carpathia in the younger man's home office. I'd encourage it. You would? I would. You have nothing to fear from Jonathan Stonegal. Sure, he has the drop on you right now because you owe him a lot of money, but that will change. You have more potential in your little finger than he has in his whole body, and besides, he's not a young man. My strategy is not to fight him, though, Leon. My plan is to endear myself to him. Then let Rika accept his invitation to represent your interest. What are you worried about? Planchette being on Stonegal's turf? Of course. You have seen the magazine spreads of Jonathan's Manhattan office, have you not? I've been in those offices. They do make one's jaw drop. Planchette will be in way over his head. But I don't think they will be in league against you. Stonegal believes he, in essence, created you at the behest of the spirit world. Maybe he did. Maybe. But he will serve you one day, as we all will. I like the sound of that. Leon stood and moved to the window. I'm glad because it's time for a tune-up of your image. What is wrong with it? In many ways, nothing. You are in the thick of this race now and favored. But I have seen candidates lose in the final days on the turn of one phrase, sometimes one word. With you, it's all about tone. I am listening, Leon. Fortunato returned to his chair. Consider this question. Who was the most influential person who ever lived? Jesus. Excellent. As you know, the world has been impacted more by him and his teachings than by any other. Our very calendar is based on his birth. What was his one most dominating character trait? Nikolai liked this kind of a challenge. He could perform miracles. At least that was claimed. I do not believe that. Fortunato cocked his head. That was something he was known for, yes. But I am talking about a quality he was seen to possess. Divinity. Fortunato drew out a long, No. Others have claimed the same. I doubt them all, of course, Leon. Of course, and while Jesus' adherents believe he was the only divine human, again, that is not a character trait. All right, Great One, I am ready for your all-knowing wisdom. What is the singular trait of Jesus you wish me to emulate? In spite of everything he said and did and remains known for, 2 millennia after his death, Jesus' defining quality was humility. Carpathia could not suppress a smile. I will tell you the truth, Leon. I believe I am more than fairly self-aware. I know how I come across to people. I know myself. Frankly, I have nothing to be humble about and detect not a shred of humility in my personality. Fortunato seemed to study him. You are self-analytical. Humility is for weaklings. I know who I am and what I am capable of, and I am determined to do it. That's all well and good, but would you call Jesus a weakling? I submit that the ethereal paintings of him as effeminate and cherubic are all wrong. This was a man of the earth, a man of the hard-scrabble first-century Middle East. He was a carpenter, a man's man, a revolutionary, a preacher of paradoxes, an enemy of the establishment. You don't believe his entire resume? Fine. Neither do I. But his story is compelling. If he truly came from the throne room of heaven to be a mere mortal, it was the greatest act of humility ever. He had no reason to be humble either. His followers believe him divine and perfect, self-sacrificial to the point of death. That is what makes his humility so attractive, so magnetic. You would do well to conjure a bit of it to round off your image. Carpathia laughed, and the more he laughed, the funnier the whole idea sounded to him, so he laughed all the more. Think of it, Leon. What could be more egregious than false humility? I believe I may be unique among mankind. I have a combination of gifts and talents and knowledge and confidence that sets me far above perhaps anyone who has ever lived, including Jesus. And I should compound that with humility? What should I be humble about? Cameron Williams nursed his ancient Volvo north along the east coast toward Boston through a light rain that turned to sleet and then a beautiful snowfall. Care to drive at all, Dirk? He asked the Welshman. Not in your life. I would be on the wrong side of the road within a minute. You just keep steering and I'll keep pedaling. Sure you have enough tread on these tires? It's not the tires I worry about, Dirk. It's the heat gauge and the oil gauge. One is high, the other low. Seems like a simple solution, then, Cameron. They stopped for oil and antifreeze and windshield washer fluid and a brush scraper. 100 miles later, they stopped for more of the same, including the scraper, which had broken after 2 uses. Cameron was tense from peeling his eyes through the growing flakes and trying to sense whether his speed was right for the increasingly slippery roads. He tried again to talk Dirk into driving, at least for a stretch. But Dirk was busy forming a snowball and hurling it, cricket style, with a long looping left-hand delivery. Cameron barely evaded the missile, then dived into the car, laughing. This was just another of the kinds of storms he loved, and while he had no interest in getting stuck or being late, this was an adventure, one he would long remember. Cameron was relieved when they finally pulled into the covered parking garage of the hotel and banquet center. Once settled into their room with a couple of hours before they needed to be dressed for the bash, Cameron called his mother. She wanted every detail, but she sounded terrible. "You doing all right, Ma?" "A little tired today. I'll be okay. Looking forward to seeing you in a few days." 2, to be exact. Me too. Dirk just got back from sneaking a peek at the banquet hall, and it appears they have pulled out all stops, lots of color and lights and sound. I couldn't afford to rent a tux, so I've borrowed Dirk's. It's a little snug and a little long, but I doubt anyone will notice or care. "What about him?" Mrs. Williams said. "Doesn't he need his tux?" "Nah, he's all tweedy like a Welshman should be, and anyway, he's just my date." "Oh, Cameron." "That's what they think." "Who's they?" "The powers that be at the Globe. They actually asked if we were lovers." "Oh, they did not. Don't you think you can pull one over on your naive mom just because you're an Ivy Leaguer now? I know better than that." "You're right, Ma. I was just teasing." The banquet turned out to be even more than Cameron had hoped for. Copies of the honorees' articles were reproduced and circulated in a colorful brochure, and professional actors read some of each aloud. He may have been dreaming or just hoping, but it seemed to Cameron that his drew the loudest applause. Dirk agreed. The recipients were lauded individually and presented plaques commemorating the occasion. The guest speaker was a horror novelist who had gotten his start in newspapers and never lost his affection for journalism. He regaled the crowd with stories everyone could identify with, and by the end of the evening, Cameron was wondering if a news weekly should really be his career target. Newspapering was still the stepchild of the publishing biz, but if you could land on the staff of a big metro daily, well, that would be exciting too. The aide to the executive editor of the Globe made a beeline to Cameron at the end of the evening. "I know it's late and that you want to get going," she said, "but Mr. Rowland would still like a word with you, and you might want to consider staying the night and outlasting this storm." A walk up the street confirmed her wisdom. Several inches covered everything, but Cameron didn't have the luxury of time if he wanted to get back to New Jersey in time for his flight the next morning. He gave his keys to Dirk and asked if he could manage getting the car onto the street and parked in front of the Globe building. "Have it warm, defrosted, and ready to go, and I'll make it worth your while." "You will, eh?" Dirk said, accepting a $1 from Cameron. "Never saw a tip like this on the London Exchange.